What's up everybody? Welcome back to another video. The time has come. It's been a few days and boy, let me tell you, this is my favorite time to be a Doctor Who fan. We got new Doctor Who on, new episodes this week, next week. The whole community's buzzing, and last week's episode, I've seen it a couple times since my last reaction, and I imagine that I will watch it again before this video goes up. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I've had time to really sit down and think about it. As I mentioned in my past video, my brother called me up and told me how he thought it was similar to Shirt Soul, and boy did that change how I thought about the episode. If you don't know, Shirt Soul is an 8th Doctor story, which is the starting point of the Divergent Universe saga. It's written by Rob Shearman, who probably has the best track record on any writer on Doctor Who, and features only 2 characters, the 8th Doctor and Charlie, his companion. They find themselves stranded in a separate universe where they're stuck in this liminal space, and there's a creature that imitates them, tricking both of the characters and also turning them against each other. The TARDIS goes away, and there's even a song similar to Why Blue Yonder that gets hummed. And yes, I had to search up the name because I forgot, but it's Frere Jacques. But anyway, it's a very good story, and I would not be surprised to hear that Rusty Davies took inspiration from it. Also, I highly recommend listening to that story, or at least some other of Rob Shearman's work. It's very good, trust me. But onto the story itself. The first thing I wanted to mention was something that I talked about or alluded to in my recorded reaction. That's available to members, but not in my last video. And that is the edge of the universe thing. Now, Doctor Who has been playing fast and loose with multiverse shenanigans since 2006, I think. But in recent years, it's been getting especially prominent. And with 2 references in the last episode alone to separate universes, it's looking more and more likely that a theory that's been going around these past few years might be coming true. And that is the idea of the split universe. Now, before we go on, there may be spoilers here, so skip ahead to the timestamp on screen if you want to avoid that. But this is all speculation anyway, so you probably don't have to worry. But I think since just about pre-series 13, fans have been saying that the Doctor Who universe is gonna change. I think the main theory is that it's gonna split off, or that 2 Doctors are gonna split off, something like that. But a lot of people have been saying there's gonna be 2 Doctor Who universes, or 2 Doctors split from each other. And in my video, my initial reaction, I said this. Now it's all making sense. Not just in this episode, but in the wider scope of the Doctor Who universe. Which is basically words to the effect of, oh, I get it, that's what they're setting up. Which I think they're setting up either that we're moving in a multiverse way, or that we're moving in a multiple Doctors way. I don't really know how that would work. Don't really know if I'd like it either. I probably wouldn't, but it's something I've seen being thrown around since 2021 now, and I felt it important to mention because I don't know, I just have a feeling. I think I probably wouldn't like it, question mark. They also mentioned it in Destination Skaro. Just thought I should drop that in there. Anyway, moving away from that, but speaking on a similar topic, I really enjoyed the plot, the meat of the story, because it kept me in a simultaneous flow state of following everything perfectly, but also keeping me interested with specific mystery box questions. Now, I clocked on pretty early that the voice was a countdown and connected to the robot moving, and my immediate guess hearing about the airlock was that someone threw themselves out. I was actually a little surprised when they said the airlock was how the creatures got in, but now we know that that assessment was wrong. The stuff that intrigued me though were the questions the doubles asked near the end. I felt like I was right there with Doctor Who, and that requires a really unique and precise skill that not all creators can master, which is knowing which questions your audience has. Now, I said in my last video that I read Doctor Who scripts for fun, and I do. And a common flaw I see in a lot of them is that the questions the character asks is not the question the audience wants to know the answer to. And in this case, Rusty Davies knew exactly what we were thinking and used that to string us along. It is genuinely really impressive. On the topic of subtlety, as I said a few videos ago, Rusty Davies is incredibly inconsistent when it comes to this, and I think we all are to some extent. As people, we all get hard-headed on certain topics, and Rusty Davies is known for being extremely ham-fisted in some episodes and then not in others. In my opinion, this is an example of quite well-crafted commentary. The themes of cognitive dissonance in humans, which ties into the next episode it seems, is quite profound. At least I thought. They set it up quite early and it plays a role throughout the episode. For me, the most compelling part, at least thematically, was what it had to say on AI art. A big conversation that has been happening recently in a bunch of industries, and I thought that the doppelgangers who get stronger as the one they're mimicking provides more information, the distortions on the face and the body, the weird inconsistency, hands especially are difficult for AI art to replicate, but also stuff like the tie disappearing. I mentioned it as a joke in the last video that they became TikTok filters. I don't even use TikTok, guys, but I imagine that might have been an intentional move. That too plays into it, and the idea of them being vampires, I think it's great stuff. Now, of course, I may be reading way into it, and it could have been the case that AI art wasn't Rusty Davies' intention at all, but that's the beauty of real art. Everyone has their own subjective interpretation, and it's also the beauty in chilling the F out. We, the audience, are not dumb. We will get what you're putting down. But anyway, enough of my rambling. I'm still leaning solid 7 or 8. Very positive from me, and let's see what you had to say about it. First, let's look at the poll, and gee willikers, you guys voted a lot on this poll. 9.1 thousand votes. I think we've got a pretty good sample size here, people. And as you can see by the results on screen, almost 60% of voters said it was incredible, with another quarter just being below that in good, meaning that only 14% of voters thought that it was not good. Pretty good result in my opinion. But that's not the only poll we have here, people. I did another one the next day where I asked people which one they preferred, the Star Beast or Wild Blue Yonder. And I think the results pretty much speak for themselves, with almost 90% of voters saying they preferred Wild Blue Yonder. And I mean, you could say I'm biased because I just made a video where I criticized the Star Beast and then I praised Wild Blue Yonder, so maybe that influenced the votes a little bit, but I'm not gonna take credit. I think that overall people just preferred the episode, and I'm gonna have to agree. I much preferred part 2 to part 1 in this case. But let's dive in and look at some of the comments. Ben10Big98 says, I wanted to like this episode, but it was a letdown. I feel like we should have gotten to do more about the 60th. I wish this episode idea was saved for 15th. Now, I intentionally picked this one out first because, well, technically it's the first comment in the comments section. This was a reply to my comment. In fact, it was the first reply to my comment, I think. And it's very interesting because I want to, obviously, in these videos, they serve as a snapshot for the community's general consensus, but I also want to highlight some people who disagree with that consensus, you know what I mean? Some people who didn't really like the episode, just like how last week I also showed a bunch of comments from people who really liked the episode, because I feel like a diversity of opinions is really important to have in these videos. A, for entertainment, because it's fun to talk about, and B, so that people can look back at these videos and see, well, not everyone loved it, because not everyone did. And trust me, we will be going into some of the criticism that some other people had later in the video. But let's analyze this one. So he says it doesn't really feel like the 60th anniversary, and that this episode would have been cool to see with the 15th Doctor. And it's really interesting that you bring it up, because while I feel like David Tennant and Catherine Tate's performances made the episode, it would have been interesting to see this with a new character in a companion and a new Doctor, because obviously the Doctor and Donna trust each other so intently. It would have been interesting to see the dynamic from two characters who maybe don't trust each other as much, and so they can be fooled in and out of that. At the same time, it is very satisfying and cool for the audience as people who know the characters actors very well to do guessing games and be like, well, I know that the character won't act in that way, therefore they're a fake. And as I mentioned, Catherine Tate and David Tennant basically completely single-handedly steal the show. It also could have been a good way to see the insight into the 15th Doctor's insecurities in a scene that I will be presumably mentioning millions of times throughout the rest of the video, which is the Flux mention scene. That would have been a cool scene to see with the new Doctor, but also with David Tennant's performance, it was just incredible. It's an incredible scene, and it's cool to see how 14 is different even though it's the same face. How those actions have affected a new Doctor. It's very rewarding. I think that's the main adjective to describe it. I've said this before actually. I think I said this in my series 4 tier list video where I said Rusty Davies is really good at writing rewarding episodes. Episodes like Turn Left, where they're constantly referencing the past and it feels like a reward to get to this episode because you understand all the context of previous episodes which may or may not have been as good as the one you're watching right now. Now you guys know me, you know I'm a massive fan of the Flux, and I do think I probably enjoyed Village of Angels a little bit more than Wild Blue Yonder. Actually, do I? They're around equal. Flux as a whole, even as a massive Flux lover, a Fluxer if you will, I will freely admit it has major problems, especially towards the end where it kind of just loses the plot. But as someone who's really analyzed those scripts and knows the conditions behind the scenes, well obviously not firsthand but from people's recollections, I can really understand why things fall through towards the ending. It's so hard to pull off an ending to a 6-hour epic like that, trying to get everything all together. It really is hard, like it can't be understated. But all this to say, it's really rewarding to all of us who stuck through it to have our loyalty to the program pay off. It's great. It's like an ATM of trust. The show will take bold moves in the future, but to make those bold moves, it needs the audience's trust, and it gets trust through quality episodes, through quality decisions. The better the decisions in a row are, the more willing the audience is to trust the next one, even if it is not something that they may enjoy. And I feel like this is why the Davros debacle was such a poor move from Rusty Davies to do right before the premiere. Why would you get into a controversy just before you're about to release a controversial episode? He knew the Star Beast was going to be controversial. Come on, there's no way he didn't. So all he did was start a small controversy and then let that snowball into a bigger one. And then you see with this one, this episode had the potential to spark even more controversy. And guess what? It didn't, because people don't care because the episode was good. And trust me, we'll be talking about that a lot more in detail. But let's take all this back to the original comment. Would this have been a better episode with the 15th Doctor? I can see it, but at the same time, it seems intentionally crafted, at least to me, with David Tennant and Donna in mind, their characters in mind. On the topic about it not feeling like a 60th anniversary special, yeah, it doesn't feel like a special particularly, nothing really special about it, but as an episode, it's pretty good. And I think the reason why I wasn't so disappointed wasn't just the Star Beast majorly tampering my expectations, but because I thought part 1 and part 3 would be the anniversary ones. If one of them is going to be an anniversary special, I thought it would either be part 1 or part 3. Now, I'm not really even expecting part 3 to be an anniversary special at this point. I feel like if they would have done that, they would have done that at that point. I thought the Star Beast was going to be the episode that had a lot of fan service. I thought that would be the kind of Day of the Doctor equivalent. And then I thought part 2 would be, you know, a part 2. I know a lot of people got really fooled by the IMDb cast list. You know those are editable by the public, right? Never trust them. But if you go to Russell T Davies' explanation on why everything was kept secret, to me at least, that makes sense. There's not really a way to market the episode without just completely spoiling it. So the best way is to say nothing, and then to contrast your silence on one episode with how much you're talking about the other ones, right? I think that's a quite bold and just smart marketing move, in my opinion. And he also mentioned the temptations of caving into fan service. Like the example he gave was having a cryogenic William Hartnell in stasis or something, which, yeah, it would have been mind-blowing flowing, but at the same time, he didn't abandon the story to do so. He's like, I'm just going to tell a story. I'm going to stick to the story. And that actually is quite hard and admirable, in my opinion. So while I do see what you're saying, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, I personally enjoy the episode as it is. This episode was gold. I loved how they showed growth in Donna, mainly with her priorities being getting back to her family. If she was just the same as she'd been 15 years ago, it'd be kind of silly. Also, I love Doctor Who having not amazing quality. Obviously, good quality is great and awesome, but to me, and for Doctor Who, the quality not being 100% is so charming and classic. Now, it's crazy to me that people are saying classic for 2008, but I suppose it makes sense, right? 15 years ago is a long time. And yes, in series 4, in Russell T Davies' first era, the effects are not great. Now, they weren't too bad for the time. Let me be real here. They actually weren't all that bad. But looking back now at like standard definition stuff, yeah, just doesn't hold up visually, and I don't care. I still think it's amazing because in my head, I fill in all the gaps. And I feel the same way here. In my head, I can just fill in all the gaps. Yeah, immediately anyone is gonna notice, hang on, that's a weird green screen. But by this point, I've rewatched the episodes multiple times. It's already forming in my mind. I can barely see the green screen anymore. I just see it as the ship because as a Doctor Who fan, I can look over that stuff. Now, I did mention it in my video, but I feel like post 2013, there is less of an excuse for Doctor Who episodes not to look as good. I mean, I heavily criticized Series 10 in my series ranking for just not looking as good as Series 9, and it just doesn't. There are some parts of certain episodes like Smile which look great, and then you have other parts, practically all the other episodes just don't look as good. And especially when you compare that and contrast it to Series 9, which had such a distinct visual style, whether or not you thought the quality of the episodes in Series 9 were that good. I mean, I have a strange relationship with some of those episodes. All that aside, the style, the visual quality is there. It's a very good looking series most of the time. And I've ranted and raved about it long enough, but Series 11 for me is just visually astonishing. It's just the best that Doctor Who has ever looked. It is so high quality. It's actually crazy. Now, a lot of people actually say Series 12 looks better, which I just don't get. Series 12 still looks good, but it isn't as professional as Series 11, if that makes sense. Maybe that's an incredibly insulting thing to say, and if so, I don't mean it like that. But for me, there are some parts of it where I look at it and I'm like, yeah, this is Doctor Who. Whereas in Series 11, it feels like every episode, my breath is taken away by how good it looks visually. Even now, I go back and I look at episodes, like, it takes you away, and I'm like, damn, that looks incredible. And I'm not gonna say Series 12 looks like ass either. There's quite reasonable argument that can be made that some of the episodes in Series 12 are the best directed in the show's history. Love it or hate it, the finale, the 3-part finale, is insane visually, jaw-dropping. Like, people can say The Timeless Children is a bad episode, but damn, some of the images in this, like, look at that shit, bro. That is badass as fuck. I mean, just the production design on Ashad is astonishing. And then we get on to Series 13, which, as I said in my past video, it's the one I give a pass to, because in COVID, things are so chaotic that apparently you couldn't have more than 2 people in a frame, which is just insane to me. The amount of limitations that were put upon Doctor Who filming wise, it makes sense why some of the episodes don't look as good. I mean, it still looks pretty good, but it just doesn't look as good as even Series 12, but especially not Series 11. So that I can give a pass, but when we come to these new episodes, they don't really seem like a visual improvement to, say, Power of the Doctor. These look about the same. I remember watching the trailer and being like, wow, there isn't that massive visual jump that there was from 10 to 11 and 12 to 13. Like the Rusty Davies era to the Moffat era, everything changed visually. It looks so different and so much better. And from the Peter Capaldi era to the Chibnall era, oh my god, it looks so much better. And then you go from the Chibnall era to Rusty Davies 2 and it looks exactly the same. Not that there's anything wrong with that necessarily. Doctor Who doesn't need to keep making leaps and bounds visually, but that's just my assessment of it overall. I'm fine with people being kind of critical of the way Doctor Who looks, but to me, if I'm given enough within the episode, I can pretty easily overlook it. Did I waffle on too much about the second half of the comment and didn't talk about the first half? Let's go back to the first half, people. The growth in Donna. Yeah, I'm glad that Donna has changed and evolved as a person as a mother. I love how that has changed her personality, and yet she still is very easily recognizable to us. People forget that Donna, when she was first introduced pre-series 4, was meant to be quite unlikable, and the reason why her ending was so tragic is because she gained all this character growth and then she reverted back to being really annoying. And that was kind of something I was a bit weird about with the Star Beast, is that they seem to have forgot Donna reverted to a really unlikable character. And yeah, they try and add in like, oh, part of the Doctor rubbed off on Donna and then she became a good person, but that kind of massively undermines the tragedy of it. But that is kind of what Rusty Davies is going for, and it leads to episodes like this, so I don't necessarily mind, especially as someone who didn't really like End of Time and how the character ended up. So I suppose it's cool we get another shot. And we see here a companion who has clear experience being a companion and a doctor who has clear experience being a doctor, which is strange to see in episode 2 of a series, but it's also refreshing. It's brilliant. This episode felt like season 4 and I'm here for it. It was a roller coaster of emotions, especially the last 15 minutes. The fact that it was just 2 of them didn't make it less special. Actually, it was the opposite. We had the chance to enjoy these 2 fantastic characters and actors on their own. They weren't technically alone, but if you know what I mean. And also, I love the creepy and haunting Doctor Who episodes. Example, Blink, Midnight, The Empty Child. It reminded me a lot of Waters of Mars, and I don't know why. Absolutely amazing, and I think better than the previous one. They're both really good, but this one tops the Star Beast in my opinion. Peak Doctor Who, I think. The episode had everything that makes Doctor Who special: the chills, perfectly written characters, the quirkiness, and the charm of the unknown. By season 4, I assume they mean series 4, but yeah, I completely agree. A lot of people saying that it reminded them of Midnight. For me, it weirdly didn't. I don't know why. Even going into it and rewatching it with the idea this is like Midnight, I still see them as totally different episodes. Which I know, like, superficial similarity, there's a mimicking creature here and there's a mimicking creature here, but like everything else about the episode is so different. There's a lot of movement in Wild Blue Yonder. There's like none in Midnight. That's just my opinion though. A lot of people really thought it was like Midnight. Waters of Mars, now that is one I can see a more clear parallel to. Waters of Mars is similar to this episode in a lot of ways, especially to do with location. Great comment. I absolutely loved all the character moments with Donna and the Doctor, all the little details, and then working through this together, figuring out who is real and who isn't. Also, glad they didn't forget that the Doctor knows hundreds of billions of languages. Even then, it's perfectly fair to say he just happens to not know this one. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, they bring it up for the sake of, oh, it's cool that he knows that many languages, but for the sake of the story, he has to not know the language, and I'm fine with that. It's not even something I have to buy into. It just automatically goes through. And speaking of all the little details, there are so many great ways to tell, just instinctively, which Doctor and which Donna is real in those 2 scenes. It's so brilliant. Something I didn't notice until I watched it again was the slide down that the Doctor does when he walks into the room at the very beginning when Donna is replacing the things. The Doctor sits down, he slides down on the wall. It's like his arms are drooping him down. It's a really good effect and great detail. But I think my favorite detail is how in the 2 scenes where they are speaking with the other doppelganger, they're speaking about the same thing. Donna's speaking about her home. She's speaking about the people waiting for her. While Donna, in the other room, not Donna, should I say, asks the Doctor about Gallifrey, but he brushes that off because his real home is the TARDIS. And then he talks about the TARDIS and how the TARDIS will be waiting for him. It's a beautiful monologue where he talks about the TARDIS staying by the sea. They build a civilization around it. The civilization falls and the TARDIS remains. I forget the exact line, but it's they worship it, then they grow older and try to burn it, then they grow wiser and preserve it. Just brilliant stuff. People who call Rusty Davies a bad writer, what the hell were you smoking, bro? And so you have them both talking about their homes, and then later on when they're talking again back and forth and we have the flux scene, they're both talking about their origins. Donna's talking about where she was born, Southampton, Chiswick, Auntie Iris, I think is her name. And then the Doctor is talking about how everyone thought he was born in Gallifrey, but he's actually born somewhere he doesn't know. It's just brilliant mirroring. And I do wonder if the Timeless Child Flux stuff will tie in to the next episode. Now, I'm perfectly fine with it not being mentioned again, even though I think it being mentioned was probably my favorite part of the past episode. But it would also be pretty damn cool if it was the reason for Jodie Whittaker changing into David Tennant, or at least some of it. I don't know, I feel like there's so much potential with all of the ideas in the Chibnall era, but due to COVID and a bunch of other factors, he wasn't able to tell Series 13 the way he wanted to, therefore it had to be cut short, therefore he had to do Flux. But anyway, let's move on. I'm truly just devastated we have to say goodbye to David again after just one more episode. Tonight really felt like Doctor Who back to its best again, and David, man, he might somehow be putting in his best performance as the Doctor that he ever has. I know, right? I can't explain it, but 14 hits different somehow. Catherine too is just phenomenal. Russell Davies has proven he can still write great Doctor Who. Excited for Ncuti, but to take David away right as he's hitting his stride in the role is just criminal. Give that man a whole season, please. But yeah, the episode was fantastic. Yeah, I kind of felt the same way after reading a bunch of these comments. David Tennant's really just hit his stride in this episode, and then he's gonna leave in the next one. Or is he? That's something I'm kind of wondering. Is this going to be the end of the 14th Doctor? Is 14 going to have his own era? It seems a bit strange for them to be like he's his own Doctor and then to only put him in 3 episodes. I wonder if we are going to have to say goodbye to David again. But let's look at the next one. This episode blew my mind, especially after the Star Beast. The tension and suspense in this episode was phenomenal. Incredible character writing. I really like what Rusty Davies did with how he mentioned the Flux. Yes, I loved it. Now, as someone who has analysed the Flux, I am pretty sure, now correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, I am pretty sure that the universe got restored. I don't know. I understand the Vanquishers is incredibly confusing. Russ Davies may think that the universe wasn't restored, but I'm pretty sure what happened is Swarm and Azure reset the universe so that they could destroy it again. But before they got the chance to destroy it again, they were killed by time. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So when he says, we stand here in a universe that was devastated by me, I think technically the Flux was undone. One of those words. But at the same time, I cannot blame anyone for thinking that the Flux was permanent because of just how confusing episode 6 was. Even then, I love it. Now, I feel like a lot of people are saying, oh my god, we got so much more character writing in this one episode for the Flux and its effects than we did in anywhere in Series 13. And while kinda, I did really like that scene, there is the stuff in Series 13, definitely not so much in the specials, they do immediately forget about it. But there are those moments in episodes 3 and 5 where the Doctor is kind of breaking down. And I understand that those are not some people's cup of tea, and I imagine that most people don't even remember them. But they are there. We don't need to downplay Chibnall to boost up Russell T Davies, although, as I mentioned before, that scene is incredible. And it just serves to show that with just a little bit extra, with just a little bit more after the fact, we can retroactively bring people to the belief that it wasn't all that bad. A bunch of the ideas introduced that a lot of people are like kind of hardcore against, they do have potential. They're not bad ideas necessarily. You just need to fully commit to them and then expand on them. And then you will get great moments like the Flux mention in that last episode. David Tennant breaking down, raging, it feels cathartic for not only the character of the Doctor, but also the fan base as a whole. And I think it's cathartic for both people who liked the Flux and for people who didn't. For people who didn't like Series 13, it feels like the Doctor is getting angry and letting it all out for you. Like, you're angry, he's angry about Series 13. For people who like Flux, it's a scene where the Doctor is truly going through all of the emotions that a character should go through after going through Flux. And also the emotions that we, the audience, went through going through Flux. Personally, when I watched that scene, I felt both. I felt both ways. I think that scene of David Tennant breaking down and just slamming the wall and then kicking the wall is just so good for so many reasons, because it ties in with story arc of the specials, it ties in with the previous story arc of a previous writer, it ties in with David Tennant's arc in the episode. There's a lot of layers and the performance itself is brilliant. Episode was definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. Lack of Sonic really helped make the Doctor think his way out of the situation. The Midnight and Among Us? vibes with the mimicking and not knowing who the real Doctor and Donna were, the character moments, especially with the Doctor wanting to talk to someone about his pain and what he's been through, but also not wanting to take those steps to do so. When the particle accelerator corridor was revealed, I was shocked. It looked amazing. My only gripes are the casting choices for Isaac Newton, as I'm pretty sure he was English. Yeah, you're right. And it had very little to do with the rest of the episode beyond a recurring gag, but Nathaniel Curtis did a great job anyway, so that's his name, that's cool. And some of the effects on the mimics look kind of goofy, especially Puddle Mimic, Donna, and the mimics crawling after Doctor and Donna while looking like they've got a YouTube filter over them. It's the mimic! Now, I do like the name Mimic, but also at the same time, I really like the name Not Things. It's so genius. Great job, massive thumbs up. I also think I will agree with this. I think Nathaniel Curtis, if that is his name, did a great job. I think he didn't have a lot of lines, but he did a funny delivery on the Mavity. I thought that was funny, but at the same time, I do understand why people are getting a little annoyed at this. Now, do I think the reaction is overblown? Most definitely, but I do sympathize because there is a massive influx of projects which have been race swapping historical characters. It's a real trend. So it's not like, oh, it's just this one-off thing. Even if to us Doctor Who fans, it may seem like it. I was listening to other people who disagreed with me, you know, like a healthy person would do. And apparently there's been a real push for this recently. Of course, there was the whole Queen Cleopatra debacle. That was this year, by the way. It feels so long ago. And when I say that show was unpopular, it was a little bit unpopular. So I can see if you're completely engrossed in that space, the space which I have really no interest in, how you can see that and be like, they're trying to steal my culture or something like that. And while at the same time, I can kind of understand. I can understand why someone would feel that way. For me, I truly do want to be good faith and think they had the best of intentions in that they did a casting call and they were looking for a hot, in quotation marks, Isaac Newton, and they probably had like 20 people show up and he was the best one, so they got him. And so for me, yeah, it isn't really an issue. It's a non-issue. By the way, speaking of people who criticize these 2 episodes of Doctor Who, it is so hard to sift through the garbage to hear the actual valid criticisms of the episode. It's so hard, man. A skill which I have always praised Chris Chibnall for is his ability to look through the sewage that is people who are hating on him and actually listen to the fans who are criticizing him in good faith. Like how people said in series 11 they wanted more lore-based episodes, so he changed to accommodate that in series 12, and then when he saw that viewer engagement spiked up in the more lore-heavy episodes of series 12, he decided to make series 13 one long story to kind of accommodate that. But for me, I do want to hear a variety of opinions. I don't want to be stuck in some weirdo echo chamber. So I do listen to videos that criticize Doctor Who and criticize episodes of Doctor Who that I like, and damn, some of them are just complete ass. Now, there are some channels which get the most views that I've already had my experiences with multiple years in the past. I already know they're full of shit. Don't worry, I'm not going to listen to them. I'm talking about the people who have like 60 views on their video. They just show up in my recommended. You know, real regular people, not people motivated by money or hatred or the money they get by their hatred of something. I'm talking about real honest critique. And yeah, you can see it. But that is my initial stance on the Isaac Newton race swapping thing, which is that to me it's not really a big deal. Not to downplay anyone else's concerns though, of course. You can all voice them in the comments below. Before we move on, take note that this is another comment which mentions midnight. Finding Volleyball says, rent was due and the goat has cooked. So true. This episode really played to all of Russell's strength. I have to agree. From the character drama to just the fun little interactions, I lobe it. I even lobe Tennant's stupid looking crab walk. Yeah, I love that too. Donna, Donna, Donna. I loved it, man. I think another funny line that I really liked was David Tennant's, I'd feel it in my bones. When Donna asks him if time has slowed down, I like when there are slight changes to the timeline that aren't that big a deal. Mavity is unironically funny. Imagine this is just what they call gravity from now on. I think Mavity is going to be important into the next episode. I really do, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense. Here's one from Eric. Wild Blue Yonder was absolutely amazing. The contrast between the Star Beast and Wild Blue Yonder is insane. I was getting pretty scared for the 60th after the Star Beast, which was a fine episode, but it was kind of bad. But this episode was so good. Also, goated video. Thank you, my friend. This guy is always here day one, second one. He's a goat. I understand some people's expectations being lowered by the Star Beast. Mine almost were. You can actually see the timeline of events of my hope leaving and then being restored by my pure love of Doctor Who. But for me, I still went into Wild Blue Yonder knowing I was going to have a good time, and I did. Joel Mole says, I honestly thought the janky special effects added to the scare factor for me. I know some people found it funny, but I thought it was pure nightmare fuel. It's been a long time since I was probably terrified of Doctor Who. I think either Listen or World Enough in Time was the last time I was scared. When was the last time I was scared? I might be saying too much here, but I think my biggest fear when it comes to media is probably like zombie stuff. So I get quite scared of like infections, as in like infections which take over your mind. So like the Flood from Waters of Mars, stuff like that, like these zombie viruses that infect people and then you become a zombie. It just terrifies me, man. It's scary as hell. So I'd imagine the last episode that kind of unnerved me or freaked me out was probably Flatline. Probably. I don't know. I wasn't really scared or unnerved at all in this last episode, I don't think. But as I said, I can appreciate that it can be scary for other people, and then I live vicariously through those people, and then that makes me appreciate it. But I myself was stone-faced. If anything, I found it more funny than anything, which is a great emotion to have. I had brilliant bouts of joy experiencing the episode. But now you got me trying to think what the last episode that unnerved me was. I remember Sleep No More, one of the only episodes I've ever walked out of while it was airing because I got bored. Not very scary though, but it was bad. I'll give it that. I don't think it was Oxygen because every time I go back to that episode, I feel nothing. I think it would have been Flatline. I think Flatline would have been the last time I was unnerved by a Doctor Who episode. And then before that, it's probably Waters of Mars. And then before that, it was probably something like, I don't know, Revelation of the Daleks. Let's move on. Cook's Book says, just something worth pointing out. Unfortunately, even though I'm sure we were meant to see more of Bernard Cribbins next week, Rusty Davies has said that that was all they managed to shoot before he passed. There were some behind the scenes shots that suggested they had shot some other scenes, but I guess they might not have got the coverage they needed to include them. Which is a shame, but I'd rather have the one scene than none at all. It's a very complicated matter. I'm so glad that they did the In Honor Of at the end. It was probably my highlight of the 60th anniversary so far actually, because I think it is so important to pay respect to the legend that is Bernard Cribbins, who is a part of many childhoods. I remember I had the cassette audio tape of Winnie the Pooh, which he narrated. I listened to that quite an awful lot as a young one. On the topic of whether or not it would have been better to include him or not, I don't know. I think we're gonna have to see next week whether or not it would have been best to not have him in at all. The moment he showed up was pure joy for me. I screamed, as I put in the video. I saw online that a bunch of people were getting really emotional. I can really understand that. It was so great to see him again, and his performance was impeccable for someone who was literally on death's door. I mean, there were no problems at all. He was perfect. His line, "Your face, it's like springtime," it is genuinely lovely. There's no real other way to say it. That whole sequence was lovely. And then of course we have, you know, the tie-in, the cliffhanger ending. I do wonder if Wilf will not show up in the next episode. I don't really know how he wouldn't. He must. There must be at least one scene with him. If that is all we see, it's going to be a bit disjointed in the next episode. I wonder if immediately the Doctor will leave Donna and Wilf and say take him somewhere safe, and then that will tie into the scene that we saw in the teaser where the Doctor goes in front of that crazy man in front of the taxi and the toy maker's dancing in the background. My theory, by the way, is that the toy maker is just making people go insane around him, like just his influence, but also that it is social commentary on the fact that the world has gone mad. I mean, that's the line Wilf says, and it's a line I've heard a lot recently, and by recently I mean since about 2015. I think the commentary is plain to see. I think the themes are plain to see. The line from the person who the Doctor speaks to is like, it's my life. You know, we've heard that before from people. People just acting crazy, going berserk. We did see those shots in the trailer. In my opinion, it was a brilliant scene. Rest in peace to the legend Bernard Cribbins. It's a real shame that he won't be included in the next episode, but I do hope that they at least give another in honor of. They really should have for the Star Beast, man. They really should have. I mean, I know people are like, oh, but he didn't appear in it. He was mentioned, okay? His name should have shown up at the end. But anyway, here's one from Dr. Skelly. This has definitely been a breath of fresh air. I loved every second of Wild Blue Yonder. It had the right amount of scares, deep driven character moments, and I love the nod to Chibnall's work with the Flux and the Timeless Child storyline. David Tennant was definitely back in his groove in this episode, definitely agree, and Catherine Tate was top notch. Plus that score. I'm so happy that Murray Gold has yet again proven himself as one of the greatest composers for Doctor Who. Super excited for the giggle next week and our first look at Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor. Stay golden, man. You too, buddy. I am very looking forward to next week. I love Doctor Who. What can I say? I don't have intensely high expectations for the giggle. It's an episode with Kate Stewart in it. How good can it be? I am expecting a frantic, fast, filled to the brim mess of an episode, kind of similar to the Star Beast. I'm expecting the Star Beast too. That's what I'm expecting. So I'm not going in being like, oh, it's going to be the best episode ever. My expectations are heavily tampered and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm sure I'm going to love it anyway, but due to just how much is forced in such a small time frame, I'm not expecting everything. I'm not expecting Day of the Doctor, right? And Murray Goldman, oh my goodness. Why did I ever doubt him? The Star Beast was a little strange in areas, but goddamn was Wild Blue Yonder just impeccable soundtrack wise. As I mentioned in my previous episode, there are some shades of Seiken Akinola in there, and that's all I wanted. All I wanted was for Seiken Akinola to come in there, shake things up a bit, and then for the person after him to continue on. And Murray Gold has shown his immense talent and skills once again by incorporating that into his new score. I do not want to downplay Seiken Akinola's score, by the way, because I was re-listening to certain scores, re-listening to the Timeless Children score and Revolution of the Dalek score. God damn, some of those are great. The Masters theme, the new Dalek theme, the Cyberman theme, they're all bangers, and a lot of people don't realize how Seiken Akinola's Cyberman theme has cues of Murray Gold's pulled into it. It's like a combination of some of the older soundtracks put together, but with a new, it's a hook. I'm not a music guy. I think it is. You still have the old recognizable Cyberman theme in there a little bit, and by recognizable I mean from Murray Gold, and you have some elements from the 80s Cyberman theme, which is personally my favorite. I think they're gonna have to go a long way to beat that 80s Cyberman theme, man. God damn, I was re-listening to that too. Holy sugar. It's very good. Here's one from Kastretch. This episode was seriously good. Like, I thought the previous episode was just alright and I adjusted my expectations because of that. And then this episode really took me by surprise. It definitely reminded me of those more experimental episodes where they're limited in characters and setting but work very hard to work within those limits. Examples I can think of off the top of my head are the classic Edge of Destruction, Midnight, where I think this one will be brought up a lot in the discussion of this episode. You Will Be Right, My Friend, and Heaven Sent. Character studies are always very interesting and the threats always have to be creative so they feel fresh. Throughout the episode, I was surprised at all the twists and turns the story was taking, and I didn't feel like we were made out to feel stupid either. The story set up certain elements and brought them back in the limelight later, like any good story should. Everything in the episode felt authentic and well constructed, just a brilliant episode overall, and in my eyes, an instant classic. What a W comment. I think bringing up Edge of Destruction is kind of the blueprint for a bunch of these episodes because it is just such a genius piece of work. And when we say, oh, they had to work with their restrictions, I mean, Edge of Destruction is that. They have two rooms, one set, and yet it is one of the most compelling, mysterious and intriguing episodes in the show's history. It is a masterpiece. I'll just say that. Midnight is also great, and Heaven Sent has its problems, but it's still very good. Speaking of Heaven Sent, when they were talking about the pain that the Doctor's gone through, when Donna said, oh, it's like looking into a furnace. I've not seen anyone speak about it, but what I actually instantly thought of before even the flux was Heaven Sent, was Peter Capaldi's Doctor Who. I think this is a case of it being rewarding not just for 13 fans, but also to 12th Doctor fans, because I'm a massive 12th Doctor fan, and I felt incredibly rewarded. I felt like when the Doctor was looking really sad and feeling devastated, it wasn't just 13th Doctor on his mind, it was also the 12th Doctor as well, and part of the 11th too. But I was thinking, especially Heaven Sent, I was thinking of, you know, the pain and torture that he went through, and of course it's still ambiguous to this day whether or not he remembers all those years, which is just an incredibly interesting plot dynamic, and I still feel the emotions of it to this day. Brilliant episode, both this and Heaven Sent. As someone who doesn't scrutinize every pixel, I just let the episode wash over me, and I found myself totally absorbed. It was perfection, I loved it, and I would be very sad when David Tennant regenerates again. Just before we get on to the next part of the comment, I actually strive to be someone who doesn't scrutinize every pixel, at least on my first viewing. Every time I rewatch it, I'm going to be noticing stuff new, and of course on my first watch I'm going to be catching stuff, because otherwise I wouldn't follow the plot at all. But I do always want to try to just be a kind of casual viewer, not in that way, that doesn't make sense. Casual observer, that makes sense. Where I do just let the episode, as he says, wash over me, and I let my feelings just come out to the story, and then I analyze why I loved it or why I didn't really like it later. And I felt like I did with this episode too, because I think it's just a healthy way to enjoy content and not let yourself get burnt out, because otherwise it begins to feel like a chore and not entertainment, which at the end of the day it is. And then of course you have people like me who find entertainment in analyzing entertainment, but also I don't want to lose that spark, you know, the ability to just enjoy an episode on an episode's own merits without overthinking it. I know there's some irony in me of all people saying that, but it's true, I really try. Let's move on. I think they should actually create a spin-off wherein the Doctor and Donna enter the universe on the other side of the gates from the Timeless Child and explore this totally unknown realm. It could run parallel with the next series or come after it. So whilst 15 is putting our universe to rights, 14 somehow split during the regeneration into 15, but also remained as 14. Who knows? Aha! Someone else has caught on. Someone that, see, I told you, I'm not the only one. There are other people who have been catching the signs. I was actually speaking with someone about this. I think it was in Discord, it may have been in YouTube comments, but I was talking about this and they were getting mad at me. They were like, there's no way that will happen. There's no way that there'll be a split show. There's no way that there'll be a split universe, split Doctor, none of that, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, man, the signs are all there. They literally did this whole new Whoniverse, right? They're literally like, we're rebooting it, we're making a whole universe, the Whoniverse, and we've been talking about multiverse for ages. Ross Davies says he wants an MCU type Doctor Who universe. The massive red flashing lights and the fact that they show the regeneration in the trailer, that tells you one of two things. One of them is that is probably not the real regeneration, and the second of which being that somehow if that is the real regeneration, there's something more to it than meets the eye. I mean, look at the Power of the Doctor trailer. They showed a regeneration, but it was obviously not the real one, and they pull this trick every time. So there is something that's gonna go astray with that regeneration. There's just no way. Now obviously I can have massive egg on my face for this abysmal fan theory, but who knows, guys? Can't make an omelette, am I right? It would be a crime to lose David Tennant a second time. Well, maybe we will, who knows? Episodes like this, where there isn't a lot of side stuff happening, really let the actors shine. I probably saved a lot of money so they could afford Neil Patrick Harris. But episodes like Midnight or Heaven Sent, where the story really needs to be solid, loved it, can't wait for next week. Midnight reference. I do wonder how much Neil Patrick Harris costs. Yes, I saw your guys' comments, by the way, that the Wild Blue Yonder doesn't have a £10 million budget. Was that claim just completely bogus then? I can't believe they were just allowed to publish straight up lies.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
It's crazy. But either way, Wild Blue Yonder's budget was not 10 million, so I retract that statement completely. I was wrong. I was wrong, people, I was wrong. But I do wonder how much of the money went to Neil Patrick Harris. There's a famous anecdote that in The End of the World, a majority of the budget actually went to the music rights of the Britney Spears song Toxic. So I wonder if it's a similar situation like that. If this episode was made to save budget, which I don't think it was, but if it was, that makes it incredibly smart on another level. So W if that's true and W if it's not. So either way you win. I absolutely loved this episode. The drama, the horror, the acting, mise-en-scène, and the final performance of Bernard Cribbins. God rest his soul. The only thing that took it down a notch for me was the green screen, which can be easily overlooked. I think that's a completely fair comment. Yeah, the mise-en-scène was brilliant. The colors, the lighting, the sterile environment, it's all so good. Even the costumes, it feels like, were picked so perfectly for the episode and location that they're in. With all the colors matching and stuff, it's so good. Viral Slices says, wow, what an amazing episode. I don't think anyone has said this yet, but Wild Blue Yonder reminds me so much of the Midnight Entity episode. It has some scenes in common. Yep, you are correct. You are the first. Also, when Wilfred showed up and he held his hands to his face when he saw the Doctor, I had goosebumps. That's exactly what I was talking about. Definitely agree. Such amazing writing. One more thing. My prediction in the next special is that Ncuti Gatwa will appear with Millie Gibson and run into David Tennant and Donna Noble and possibly work together. What do you think? Yeah. I mean, see? I told you guys I'm not the only one. What is this? Another comment back to back? I actually included this comment only because they said, I don't think anyone said this before, but it reminds me of Midnight. I included it for that. But yeah, at the end there, they mentioned that Ncuti Gatwa will appear with David Tennant instead of David Tennant turning into Ncuti Gatwa or some weird thing happening there. I honestly think it's likely. I do. I don't really know how. I think we'd have to see the way they'd want to play it. I don't know how to describe it. I've got an idea in my head, but I can't put it into words. Maybe I will in a future video. But overall, yes, good theory. And great comment too. Homeboy Official says, I've genuinely never felt happier to say a Doctor Who episode legitimately made me feel fear. The uncanny valley and use of body language in this episode was nothing short of brilliant. There are aspects of this episode that definitely felt limited, CG in the hallway to name the main one, but the writing and concept of the episode is brilliant. For me, having a mini season as the 60th rather than something specifically focused on the Doctor feels so much more fitting. We had a grand story for the 50th, and I'm so happy they haven't rehashed that. Just before we go into the next comment, I definitely see the vision there. I really do. No, seriously, I really do. I have been critical in my previous video about, oh, it's not like the 50th, but it isn't. Right? The 50th is different to the 60th. The 50th is a lot more monumental. And if we look at Doctor Who's strategy overall with the 60th, it's not as big as the 50th. Now, some may argue, including me, that it could have and should have, but if we look at like Big Finish, for example, they're doing the Once and Future project. That's a lot less grandiose than Light at the End, which was the 50th special, right? It was the special, whilst Once and Future is kind of similar to the way that the 60th on screen is playing out. Completely different in terms of story, of course, but in terms of style. And I am actually really enjoying this little mini series, and I think I will look back on it with immense nostalgia and love, I think, because that's how I felt about Flux while I was watching it. I was like, oh, this is going to be like my little corner of Doctor Who. And I feel the same way with these 3 episodes, because it's a mini arc, which means you can watch them pretty cleanly back to back to back, right? Which means that as someone who rewatches Doctor Who, I feel like religiously is an understatement. But having episodes that are so easily rewatchable in sequential order, that released in such a small time frame, with a central arc, but also they feel different enough that you don't get bored halfway through, it's perfect for me as a fan. Now, of course, would I have loved a Day of the Doctor type special or series of specials that were all this grandiose and multi-Doctor? Yeah, I would have loved it, but at the same time I see the vision and I applaud the execution because I think it's done well and will age very well. Let's move on with the rest of the comment. The use of the concepts from Midnight and the Capaldi episode about graffiti, can't remember its name, it's Flatline, really do give this idea of the universe being so much broader. It makes me happy about the Flux and Timeless Child storyline introducing the concept of other universes, because it's bringing us concepts outside of what is established as the rules of our universe. See what I mean? He said it, not me. The Flux and Timeless Child, it was introducing the concept of other universes. It's all been set up, people. I'm not crazy, you're crazy. Stray Maverick said this episode was incredible. It's an instance of Rusty Davies doing the trifecta. The plot, character and thematic writing here were fantastic. The last episode being about the Self also plays a role here, as there are copies of the Doctor and Donna as well. That is actually really clever because I didn't notice that. Really clever continuance of the last episode. That's so true. I didn't even notice that before. Damn, that's actually a really smart catch. Because of course the Doctor's like, I don't know who I am anymore. And then he's faced with a mimicked replica of himself and not Doctor. And now that I really think about it, that I don't know who I am anymore line really ties back into Flux and the Timeless Child, which is something I should have noticed, but I just assumed we were doing our own thing. But now we have brought that back up. It's really interesting. Also, having just the Doctor and Donna be in this episode was a stroke of genius, as likely their last outing in the TARDIS together should just focus on them. Very true. The theme is also less obvious here than the Star Beast, but still pays off in spades if analysed. So true. The idea of some problems having to be slowly dealt with instead of in an instant is here, as the enemies had to be defeated through a slow process, and overthinking actually made them more powerful. This ties into the Doctor having to deal with what happened in the Flux. There's even the clever line at the end where the Doctor asks whether he'll be okay, and he says, "In a million years." Really great stuff. Also, love your content, man. Got a sub here for sure. Keep it up. Let's go. Yeah, you're the goat. Also, the song Wild Blue Yonder being said to be a war song and Donna saying she thought it was jolly hits on the idea that two things can be true at once, while the villains only view things in one way. Just like when they said the universe was pure war. Again, there's a lot here, lol. Yeah, I know it's that bit. The idea that they heard the war and that's what morphed them is, I mean, it's very clever, even without the Wild Blue Yonder thing playing, because it, of course, ties into real life, but also into the lore of the Time War, of course, and a bunch of stuff with that. And in a million years, I mean, I think the "Are you okay? I will be" is just such a great interaction, and in a million years is just a great way to tie it in. This is the positive outlook and excited energy surrounding Doctor Who I've been waiting for. Me too, buddy. This episode was awesome, and I'm so excited about the future of Doctor Who. To be honest, I like the Star Beast too, but this was amazing. As I said at the start of the video, this is my favorite time to be a Doctor Who fan. Hearing everyone buzzing about it. You got some people who don't like it, but a lot of people do. You have thoughts, opinions, theories, everything flying around, and you have another episode of Doctor Who to look forward to next week. Oh my god, so good. Absolutely loved this episode. Felt like the next Midnight reference. I love the callbacks to the Chibnall era, and I swear I even heard a bit of the Flux theme in that scene. I think I did too. Having Murray call back to some of Sagan's themes makes me way more excited than it should. Like a proper merging of all the styles of the different eras. Super excited to see where the episode goes, and I feel like my purchase of the steelbook for these specials is justified by these episodes alone. Recently bias is probably playing some small part, but even besides that, I feel confident that this will stay as one of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who Classic New, or whatever we're calling this new show. Are the 60th specials part of the new shows, New Who, or in between? They are technically part of the new show, which is a bit weird, because you would assume that it would start with season 1, episode 1, but no. Andrea Lee says this special was truly everything I wished for the second it was announced Tate and Tennant were returning. I mentioned it before, but the one thing I was so certain to do was not have expectations for the specials. Once I knew there would be 3, I didn't want to have expectations on each, because I assumed it would be an even field for the story arc or some sort. But I can't lie that I didn't have a checklist of what I truly wished would occur. And one thing was a purely Doctor and Donna centered episode with a new adventure, not lore heavy, something spectacular that feels like it could have been pulled from their original catalogue. With their new growth after the 15 years for Donna and over 4 billion for the Doctor. And boy was I fed. So true. After the Star Beast, my hopes didn't waver, but I wasn't sure what to expect. I was astonished by all the character developments with both 14 and Donna, the visual physical affection between the two best friends. By far my favourite shot of the show is that 5-second slow zoom in of the Doctor holding Donna and the TARDIS 4 after flying away, with the most blankly horrified expression on both faces after what they both witnessed. Seeing that look on the Doctor's face while consoling Donna was amazing. It was so good. I too love that shot, and I also love the Doctor kissing Donna's hand and saying, "I will take you back." And yes, this comment is a little long, but I want to go through all of it because I actually haven't read it through. I just screenshot it after seeing the length and wanted to read it all in the video. The suspense of not knowing whether the Doctor would come back for the real Donna was so well done. Props to the sound editors and the true length of the scene where Donna is facing the far heat. The best scene was undoubtedly the conversation between the Doctor and not Donna, referencing the Flux and Timeless Child. My days was that so well done. Their performances and David's face after the realization hit, it wasn't fully angry but more sour, upset, truly hurt after the fact. I'm obsessed with the reference at all because you already know I'm a hashtag fluxer. This guy gets it. Hashtag fluxers. I'm a fluxer too. But the emotional weight that comes with not knowing who they are is insane. Something the Doctor has always done is run from their past, especially after getting heavy insight about something. And a critique I've seen so many people talk about is that Russell T Davies handled way better than the Chib Goat ever did. At least the Doctor knows the damage he did and isn't ignoring it like she did before, acting like everything is okay. Okay, it's not like the Doctor didn't notice it or thought everything was okay before. Rewatch The Timeless Children and the Flux maybe. She was deflecting though, which is a classic Doctor move. Chibnall very clearly stated multiple times that he left the Timeless Child arc open-ended to see what other writers do with it and how it can be embedded in the future, to add mystery to the Doctor, which more often than not in the newer series, questions usually get immediately resolved within a series arc. Oh my god, what a just incredible paragraph. He hit everything on the head. Namely, Chibnall did leave it open-ended. He wanted people to just play around with it. But also, because Chris Chibnall is the GOAT, he also said that he fully expects no one to touch it after he was done, because he is that humble, because he is the GOAT, and he understands the behaviors of writers and of Doctor Who fans, because he's smart. And so to have Russell T Davies graciously take him up on his offer and go on with the storyline is beautiful to witness. But for the people who say that Jodie Whittaker's 13 never reminisced on it, she did. But as pointed out in this comment, the character of 13 is one who holds everything in, who doesn't tell the companions that she's the Timeless Child the whole time. She lies to her companions, keeps a bunch of secrets, is always pretending, and never opens up to physical affection. That's the character of 13 post series 12. So while yes, you could say, oh, 13 never really broke down apart from, you know, those few small scenes where she did, it's because it's not really in her character to just openly show all her emotions. Now you can't criticize that and be like, well, it would have been more entertaining if she was, but it was a vision of Chris Chibnall. He wanted to create a Doctor who was emotionally distant, and I have no problem with that. Let's continue on. I truly don't believe there could have been a better pair to bring such a vital and vulnerable detail of the Doctor's past, with Russell T Davies writing other than the Doctor and Donna. Donna was his best friend. Donna was brilliant and in universe the one who would most likely have access to the knowledge post Metacrisis, so it makes sense. The care they would have for each other is so deep without being meddled with romance, and probably one of the purest forms of real connection the Doctor has had with a companion on New Who. Again, not subtextually romantic. I mean, yeah, very true. What an incredible comment, man. Double thumbs up from me. The fact that this ep made me care even slightly, want to see the Flux and the Timeless Child stuff is more than amazing. I truly hate that stuff to my core and wanted it retconned ASAP, but the fact that I actually thought maybe it's not so bad because of 2 scenes shows how the good writing and acting of this episode actually is. This is the Doctor who I've been missing since Twice Upon a Time. Now, on your comment about this being the best Doctor Who since Twice Upon a Time, was Twice Upon a Time that good? It's a pretty shit episode, let's be real here, guys. Most, if not all, of series 11 to 13 clears Twice Upon a Time without much effort. It's not that good a story. And I think even if you're a Chibnall hater, you can get some enjoyment, at least slightly, from Power of the Doctor. I mean, it's a fun episode, right? I don't know, maybe I'm underestimating the level of how much these people hate the 13th Doctor. Here's a great one from Green Goko. Cool monsters, great acting, pacing was nice and great music. It is amazing what a talented editor and 2 actors can convey. So true. The editing, woof. Whoever edited this episode, you deserve a lot of praise. All the feelings were hit correctly. My 2 main issues is with the monsters becoming big, removes the tension as there is less build up and more immediate danger, and the heroic portrayal of the suicide as heroic wasn't great, should have been seen as tragic. Is that talking about the alien? I mean, I don't know. Bad green screen the first time, IMO, okay afterwards. Didn't mind Isaac Newton, although I thought he was an Italian nobleman. Cool misdirect of the setting. Ending chat about superstition and wolf was nice, although it felt somewhat deep faked, which seems a bit unfortunate. Hope these scattered thoughts help. They incredibly help. Now on Isaac Newton, I feel like I've already talked about it. I think whether or not I look back on the gag being funny or not is dependent on what happens in the next episode. But on the topic that you bring up of the suicide being labeled as heroic, it comes back to a kind of topic we were talking about last week, and with Davros as well. Should we give up a good story because we feel like some people might take the wrong message away from it? Do we apply a strange, no nuance filter and we paste it on the episode and say, oh well, this suicide was seen as a heroic act and therefore we have to change everything around? Or do we feel the emotions of the story that is being told? Do we accept the creator's vision? Do we see the story? Do we feel the emotions of seeing someone who walked out of an airlock without their helmet to sacrifice themselves? Do we feel that? Or do we sanitize it to give it a message of suicide is wrong? I feel a lot of people know that suicide is wrong, and I don't think this episode is pushing anyone to commit suicide. I think it's more so that in the context of the story, it works and is emotionally poignant. And there's this really good shot at the end of the episode where the fire comes out and then it engulfs the captain as well, as if my mission is finally done. And for me, I personally find that effective. Now, I do understand it's a really complex issue. There's a show called 13 Reasons Why, which I've never seen, but I know of. And I know that's a show which handles suicide just incredibly poorly. And I know it's not a case of, oh, just because you're not as bad as the worst possible thing doesn't mean you're bad. But at the same time, I do think there's a clear difference with, those bad portrayals of suicide and kind of this one, where, yeah, I feel like from a kind of outside perspective, we can all look at it and say, oh, suicide should not be labeled as heroic, but it's fiction, it's the context of a story. We have to allow ourselves to feel the emotions of things that might not be squeaky clean. And that was kind of a big problem with the Davros ordeal, far more than last week actually. Let me focus on Davros, where Genesis of the Daleks, right? It's a story that isn't squeaky clean. I mean Davros in general, to just kind of clean him up and, take him out of the wheelchair, just make him a regular guy. It just takes away all of the emotion that we feel for the character. It's like not even describable. And for people to say, oh, a design change doesn't matter that much. Yes, it flipping does. I don't really know how else to say it. It really does. And it basically takes away everything that makes the character interesting or appealing. Because without that design, it'd be nothing. Because there's so much work that's been put into the design and thought that's been put into the design, both literally and especially thematically, and how it interweaves with the story. And to kind of retroactively sanitize it for an issue that truthfully isn't really that big a deal, I think overall I'm gonna have to disagree with that. But I do value your perspective, because Green Goko, you are the GOAT. A great episode. I prefer it to the Star Beast only because I like episodes that only have one location. It surprised me to start with because of Isaac Newton's presence having no or possibly no impact on the story, but it didn't make me feel cheated. I didn't think any previous Doctors would be returning, but was interested in seeing what could happen. Would have been nice if Smith or Capaldi were the Doctor's copy, and they think they've met a previous Doctor. Gave me Midnight vibes with the creatures copying the Doctor and Donna, like the robot too. Very Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It really was. That robot design really, I mean, that's the first thing I thought. I don't remember if I mentioned in the video. I definitely should have. It really reminded me of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. On Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi returning, I don't think Peter Capaldi wants to return. I think that's kind of just a straight up, he had a falling out or some bad stuff happened behind the scenes and he just doesn't want to come back. Matt Smith, I don't know. I feel like we maybe could convince him to come back if we brought back Karen Gillan as well. And of course Arthur Darvill, we've got to bring him back too. But I didn't expect that those guys would show up in the episode, no way in hell. Nicholas Pruitt says, despite the interesting green screen effects, I really love the focus on the characters. As someone who wasn't a big fan of Tennant and Catherine returning and Chibnall's storyline, them doubling down on it actually made me quite like it a lot. I mean, same, bro. It's hard to explain. I like Russell's confidence in cementing 14's face and Flux's storyline. I had some issues with the story at times that really took me out of it, mostly aggressively the ending. Why can the TARDIS ramps launch you? It's a little crazy. What is the TARDIS planning? Why has it installed springs into the ramps? At first, I didn't really get why they kept it so secretly. It was essentially just the two main characters running around corridors for a low-budget threat, like admittedly most Doctor episodes, but I get it now. The pure thrill and interest I felt from this episode for me beats any crazy multi-dimensional high concept cameo bonanza we could have got. I do wonder if Scherzo was an inspiration, as I get the same vibes. TLDR, I've been converted into a Timeless Child fan, I think. I mean, same, bro. What a monster W of a comment. Just insane. Dub after dub after dub. I relate to basically all of it. Now, for me, the TARDIS ramp, while being completely ridiculous and ludicrous, and if it was in a children era, there'd be riots in the street. For me, it comes back to this kind of trust thing. They've built up all of our trust so much so that they can pull a ridiculous maneuver at the end, and we won't really mind as much because they've invested so much time in it. And the set piece of Donna being being left away and the Doctor bringing the wrong one, I think that kind of justifies it enough, even if it is just a cheap tension building trick. And as well as that, I just completely agree with you on everything. I don't really know what more I can say. Russell T Davies dropped a banger of an episode. Perfect birthday present. Definitely the high concept kind of adventure I love from Doctor Who. They said it was unlike any episode in the show. While I don't fully agree, it did make me feel actually scared for once in a long time. The oh god moment when they both initially separated and the copy showed up was actually so freaky. Loved how much it reminded me of some of those experimental Big Finish adventures. They really didn't they? VFX was a little janky at times, but other than that, writing was clever, Flux was mentioned, and Wilf. Definitely a great episode, 9 out of 10. Another W comment, and happy birthday, my friend. Anyone else notice the big door that blocks the not things from reaching the Doctor and Donna in the cockpit was the exact same door from bisecting the manifold in the first episode? Like the exact same prop? I did notice that, and I found it funny too. I liked how there was so much mystery to the special that it was better than the first one where we had almost all of the information about it. I mean, this is just me speaking, but I love not knowing anything. I love no spoilers. For the Star Beast, I actually didn't look at the preview clip. I think for Wild Blue Yonder I did, kind of just by accident, and for the giggle I'm definitely not, because I love going into these things blind, just not knowing what to expect, making up my own ideas as we go along. And I think part of that is why I loved a lot of the Chibnall era so much, because it had those moments of just pure shock. Series 12 especially, the Master reveal. I mean, there's been a lot of time, especially in the Moffat era, where I would be like, what? After an episode, but that Spyfall reveal, man, that just takes the cake. And God, does it beat stuff like the Star Beast where it's all shown in the trailer, or most egregiously the Series 10 finale where they revealed it all in trailers and leaks and images where they showed that the Cybermen would be in it and that Johnson would be in it. What the fuck were they thinking? So yeah, I much prefer the emphasis on not knowing anything that this episode had, and it made me enjoy it all the more. Man, this episode was amazing. I loved it, 9.5 out of 10. Loses a point for pointlessly race swapping Isaac Newton, but gained a half point for my boy Bernard. Very, very true. Very true. Yeah, that's pretty true. Massive W. That's what I said. And then President Lemon replied, who let bro cook? Cause that meal was delicious. So true. When the third special comes out, can you make a video of you edging through the entire episode?
What? What do you mean by that?
This episode, happy to say, beat the fraud allegations. So true. They cooked, bro. This was so good. They did indeed cook. Russell T Davies is not a fraud. Thank God we beat it. Oh my God, guys, we won. And this is a perfect final comment from Gumball Machine 05. Me seeing the start of this, realizing I wasn't subscribed. I'm a fraud. Luckily, this person has amended their error. But have you? What are you doing, man? Subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you want to join the under 10k club, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Can you believe that still, to this day, 92% of people who watch haven't subscribed? That's insane, people. Don't be a fraud like Matt Smith and subscribe right now. And that's about it. That's all I really wanted to say. I'm really looking forward to the giggle. If you want to help support the channel even more, you can click the join button below to get access to a multitude of perks and benefits, exclusive videos, and my live commentary reaction of certain episodes. And yeah, with a massive special thanks to my members, I will leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.